All of you guys want to hear the prognosis for Malcom Rodriguez and the torn ACL. Welcome in, Doc.
How you doing?
Real good, man. It's good to see you.
Man, I love all the love I'm getting, but it's related to too many injuries with the Lions. So good and bad. I guess we're getting the good and bad. I was at the game yesterday, got a lot of Woodward sports love from the fans, and it was kind of, now I know what it's like to be like you guys, being recognized and pull aside.
Well, that's beautiful. But if the Lions weren't injured, we just have you on to talk about the weather. And how boring would that be?
He's had triple and quadruple duty when it comes to injuries this season.
I'll find some other things we can talk about. But, yeah, I mean, it's I don't know how you want to get into it.
Tell us about the ACL. Tell us, I mean, we know the anterior cruciate ligament. It's something that keeps your leg from going the wrong way. It's crucial. But we want to know about recovery. Are we going to be able to see Malcom next year?
Oh, yeah, for sure for next year. I mean, everybody's worried, breaking news, season-ending injury. We've talked about it a lot, unfortunately, because we've had it. So here's the actual injury. It doesn't look like much, but his leg just kind of goes the wrong way. And it's those vector forces we've talked about where it's just an unfortunate twist in the motion where his body's going one way with a lot of power.
Oh, you can see
and then he's being twisted the opposite way. So with that being said, just going through the anatomy, I think we have a thing of the anatomy too. The knee obviously is a very intricate part of the body where you can see all the muscles. We're peeling back the muscles here, getting right down to the ligament. And the ACL is kind of like that crisscross thing that we have going. You'll see the red there, right there. It's the ligament that keeps your knee tight, right? So you got all the muscles around. We peeled that back. You have the ACL, which we all hear about, and that's a tear actually within that holds that joint consistently tight. So what you were trying to say that from forwards and backwards, it's that sliding motion. Because then we have collateral ligaments on the outside. We have the meniscus, which is like the cushion part, but that ACL that we all hear about and worry about with that injury, is the ligament that holds it tight. So you don't get that sloppy feeling where you can make the cuts and things like that. So unfortunately for professional athletes, it's a well-needed ligament. And these days, back in the day it was a kiss of death if you had an ACL. Now it's kind of routine. Hats off to the medical community that has made it pretty routine. So, we're looking at, it's always been a 6-month period from a physiological standpoint, physiological healing. So with that ACL repair, he'll probably have it repaired within the next 24 to 48 hours, depending on how much swelling is going on there. But they're so strong in their quads and their thighs that recovery should come back fairly quickly. So when you're talking about what's the recovery, Super Bowl, I don't know the date right now, but you're not coming back in less than 4 months.
No.
So
It does sound like he'd be available for OTAs in June, though. You have mentioned we were together a lot of Thursdays during the summer that ACL surgery and technology is far, far advanced. I'm a sufferer of a torn ACL myself. My question, because I know how I've dealt with it, is the emotional side, the psychological side. And what do you guys provide for athletes to help them not just in physical therapy, but also believing in those injured limbs and recovery?
I think, especially now, even on the team, we have ACL injuries. I mean, J-Mo's a great example of coming fully back and being even stronger. Rodriguez is, he's not he's not the same personality. He's that guy that's going to grind it out in the corner. I'm going to do everything those doctors tell me. I'm going to stay on schedule. I'm going to beat that schedule, and for him to understand. So he's got to get through it. The mentality is, the unfortunate thing, we got a lot of people in that recovery rehab room.
Yeah.
And they're almost going to get as competitive as they are in the field for return to play. So I think there's a lot of positive encouragement. So when you talk about the mental aspect, if you're there all alone, like we talked about Braylon with his ACL, it was pretty lonely. I don't want to use the word depression, but it plays on you mentally. So when you got a team around you, you got the medical staff is proving out to be second to none in the NFL right now. As far as the trainers, everybody's on top of it. The knowledge of the ACL, there's no mystery to it. I'm not saying it's becoming very common, but there's no big mystery. The way the recovery, the repair, the technology that you're using, but also the strengthening what we need to do. So it's not, nothing's foreign. So it's just unfortunately, it's like pregnancy. No matter how much you want to push it, it's still 9 months to deliver it.
Now, maybe you can change my mind on this, but one of the most ridiculous things I always hear when teams have a lot of injuries, well, can the training and medical staff, are they doing something wrong? In the NFL, isn't it just sort of like injuries happen because they happen? Or can a training or medical staff do something to prevent injuries, which I don't think can happen?
Or predispose you to more injuries.
Right.
Well, I mean, I don't know if we want to open this can of worms, but there have been periods of time where new technology, like overlifting, creating muscle imbalances. We saw that a lot with sports hernias. We adjusted it. Overlifting, overstrengthening, shortening the muscles, all that. You have to have a very good trainer. You don't need a meathead guy like you're going to get as big as I am, and you shorten muscles, which actually is a big problem. You want to fully lengthen the muscle. So the training staff, are any of these injuries related to that? No, these are silly injuries. I mean, Aiden's silly injury. Our linebacker from last week, Alex, those were silly, unfortunate moments. With this, it's a bad moment where his foot got planted and his body went the opposite way. There's nothing we can go and look at and say that's the way they're training. They overtrained, they overdid it. There was big criticism at the beginning of the year that they were going full tilt in preseason, and is that going to wear on them later in the season? I'm a Dan Campbell fan, but I also, if we go back to the stuff I said, we might not like this later in the season because we're going so hard now. When we look at it, like there's criticism of the kickoff play. Well, all these things are being done because the odds are to reduce injuries. Why do we reduce the amount of time that they're in pads preseason? Campbell wanted them going 100 miles an hour day one. There's a wear and tear factor. Why do we have the resting in the NBA? There's a wear and tear factor to be ready for that playoff Super Bowl run. So I don't know if I actually answered your question, but no, I don't think anything's doing anything malignant or bad for the Lions and the training staff that are leading to these silly injuries. The little bumps and bruises and the achiness, maybe that you can start saying they're being overworked and we got to start properly resting them. But I think they rested pretty well during Thanksgiving, so no, I can't.
Yeah, and I also think Campbell protects his players. Like, you can have a hangnail and you're not practicing on Wednesday.
Right. He's very in tune to let them rest. So I think right now I'm going to say it's just unfortunate moments on our majors that we're talking about, like Aiden and Alex and now Rodriguez. I mean, you look at it, he didn't really do anything. It was like, how did it even happen? And it's just vectors and forces. So it's crazy.
It's an interesting thing that you brought up, Terry, because I was going to say the same thing. I have so many people telling me, well, it's because of the medical staff, they're so injured. If anything, it's a style of play and leaving it all on the field that, if anything, has exposed these guys to maybe a higher rate of injury this season. My question for you, Doc, is what makes the Lions health and medical team so good?
Well, like I've said before, when everybody's on the same page, like you said, Campbell has created an atmosphere, an environment where everybody's on the same page, right? So they're so good because everybody's going for the same goal. You don't have players, like certain players we can mention in the NFL, that are hiding their injuries, exaggerating their injuries, finding reasons. All these guys want to play. It's really the next man up mentality, and I support whoever my teammate is. And I think there's a lot of true love in that locker room. And the medical staff, we love it when we're on the same page. We love it when you get agents, you get lawyers. It's a business. It's not just I'm just talking to the athlete. You're talking through a lawyer. You're talking through an agent. You're talking through upper management. They're wearing a hat that they have to deal with. I've dealt with a lot of politics in just treating a certain player. Management's like, well, we're not sure we want him to rehab. We're not sure where we want him to be. He's in contract year. A lot of these guys are very aware of the business aspect of it. I think all that's been wiped away with the Lions, where you're seeing that in a lot of locker rooms. I can't get into it, but I think with the Lions, they are focused on Super Bowl only. We're doing everything possible, get everybody healthy. And you mentioned, I think it's the mentality, leave it all on the field. These guys are leaving it on the field.
Yeah.
I think they're going at, I've talked a lot about working in 10 gears. And, they're on the field. Are they in gear 5 through 7? Or are they through 7 through 10? I think a lot of teams you can see, like the Raiders, nobody's getting out of 7th gear. Where the Lions, everybody's 8, 9 gear.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like I've seen one play being taken off by anybody on this team.
No, absolutely not. But I tell you one thing that happens a lot in professional sports is there's mistrust between the athlete and the medical staff from the team.
Right.
Where does all that come from? Or is that accurate?
I don't want to say it's accurate because those are my guys.
It happens though, right?
I've been involved in some cases where management was on a different level, and when the doctor that works for the team, his onus is to the management, and a lot of players will leave to get another opinion, or they have treatment outside of the traditional locker room. And is it a trust thing? I think it's, what's the motivation? What hat is he wearing? Is he knowledgeable enough? Sometimes the docs are not the best people because, like, if you go to I'm not picking on certain cities, but certain cities don't have a quality that you might have in a bigger city.
Sure.
So, like, you hear about Andrews all the time. He's the biggest name. I'm going to Andrews to get it done. That was the big thing 10 years ago. But there are doctors. There's doctors on the East Coast, there's doctor on the West Coast. Our docs here are great. They're highly qualified for what's been going on right now. So to create that mistrust, it is deserving because some of the athletes and the politics and the lawyers and the agents they're fighting for their own player. Everybody's worried about that next contract, unfortunately.
Well, it's definitely going to come down to trust at the end of January and early February, because every fan in this city, if they see Hutchinson walking anywhere or doing anything, they're going to want him on the field. But it's going to, at that point, come down to the trust, not only with management and with the health staff, but also Hutchinson being honest. What are the odds that if the Lions make the Super Bowl, we see our defensive captain, Aiden Hutchinson, on the field in Las Vegas?
And I, for one, don't want to see it. Am I being a worm boy? Because I just think there's going to be too much going on in his head. Let him go through a training camp. Let him rest that thing. Let him get it straight. That's my opinion, but could he do it?
It's funny. I talk about people recognize me at the field, but that was the biggest question I got asked.
I bet.
Can Hutch come back? I mean, we've done a few pieces on Hutchinson, and a lot of love for the guy. I said he's going to beat the 6-month recovery. Can he beat the 4-month? I'm kind of with Terry. It wouldn't be in the best interest. Okay, but there are measurements. We have enough scientific stuff to look at his strength, his speed, his feedback systems. He can be analyzed at a very detailed level that we didn't have years before. It was more like, how you feeling?
Yeah.
Now we can do measurements. We can look at side to side. We can look at his step movements. But I think he's the only thing that's going to get him on the field is that he thinks this is the only time we're going to get to the Super Bowl. We got to get there too. There's a lot of games to still be played.
Certainly.
We are favored, which is great, but we also have a target on our back, which isn't so great. They talked about the Eagles. They're going to slide in like, we did last year. Those kind of things. But we got to get there. But I would be hard pressed to see him be on the field in less than 4 months. That would be a real miracle.
Herculean. Yeah. Well, we were in here
That's
yesterday.
a lot of secret sauce.
Yeah. Well, they got it. They got a lot of that sauce there in Allen Park. But we were talking yesterday at the end of the watch party and in the beginning of the post-game show. And Stick, he thinks he should be out there no matter what, if he's healthy or even kind of. KG's on the opposite side of that spectrum. Sit him. Keep him healthy. Let's have him for next year. I guess my question is there somewhere in between where you have him on the sideline? But the big thing that why he thought he could just go out there is he's saying, this isn't like an ACL. It's not like an Achilles. It's a different injury. To me, I feel like there's just as much re-injury opportunity for that kind of a break.
There is. I mean, I use the example of pregnancy's 9 months, no matter how much you push it. Same thing with bone healing. There's a physiological strengthening of the bone. We always use the word 6 months, okay? Can we push it at 4 and try to be fortunate? He's got fractures. He's got to build. It's the bone healing, but you got to realize all that muscle and everything he's been recruiting for years and building up to, that's not going to be overnight. It doesn't turn back on. He's as big as he was. Hutchinson's built a little different. He carries a lot of muscle above the knee. From the knee down, he doesn't have that big, bulky muscle, which kind of created from his speed and probably his old days of dancing.
Hey.
But that's how he's built. So we have to understand his anatomy versus like Rodriguez and the other linebacker. These guys are big, burly guys. Hutchinson's, he's been very limber and very flexible and very quick because of that. That all has to come back quickly. So we're talking physiologically 6 months for bones to heal, but also, he's in the pool now. He's activating those
Attention
muscles.
sports
All that
fans,
stuff
don't
has
miss
to
out on
activate.
Expert Sports Injury Insight with Dr. Jeff Pierce of Michigan Sports and Spine. Join Dr. Pierce every Tuesday during Big D Energy and Thursdays during Ermanni and Edwards, where he offers top-notch injury advice. Trust the guy that I trust. Dr. Jeff Pierce is here to keep you in the game and performing at your best. For more information, visit MichiganSportsandSpine.com or call 248-426-9944.